Hey everyone, and welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we're going to be diving deep into the world of malware.
Ooh, malware.
Yeah, and how to protect ourselves from it.
Right.
We've got a really interesting document here. It's in French, actually. It's called Texte Collé.
Okay.
And we're going to kind of use this as our guide as we explore, all the different types of malware, how it can infect your computer,
Right.
and, really what you can do to stay safe online.
Yeah, because that's important.
It is really important. Especially these days,
Yeah.
It seems like every other day we're hearing about some new data breach or cyber attack.
Yeah, it's definitely a growing problem.
It is. So whether you're, just a casual internet user or you work in a, highly sensitive industry,
Uh-huh.
this deep dive is for you.
So let's get into it.
Let's do it. So first things first, what exactly are we talking about when we say malware? I mean, I throw that word around a lot.
Sure.
What does it actually mean?
Well, this document, it defines malware as logiciel malveillant, which is basically French for malicious software.
Okay, so malicious software.
Malicious software.
But what does that mean, like in practical terms? For someone like me who just uses their computer for, everyday stuff.
Well, think of it this way.
Okay.
Malware is basically any kind of software that's designed to harm your computer or steal your information.
So it's like a digital bad guy.
Exactly. And just like in the real world, there are lots of different types of bad guys, right?
Right.
Well, the same is true with malware.
Okay, so we're not just talking about one thing here. We're talking about a whole spectrum of threats.
Exactly. And some of those threats are a lot scarier than others.
Okay, so what are some of the scariest types of malware that we should be aware of?
Well, I think for a lot of people, the scariest one is ransomware.
Ransomware? Okay, I've heard of that.
Yeah.
It sounds kind of scary, but I don't really know what it is.
Yeah, ransomware is basically like digital kidnapping. Yeah, so imagine this. You're working on your computer, and all of a sudden, all of your files are locked.
Oh, no.
And you can't access any of them.
Ugh, that's my worst nightmare.
Right. And then you get a message from the attackers saying that if you want your files back, you have to pay a ransom.
Oh, gosh, so they're holding my data hostage.
Exactly. And these ransoms can be really high, like thousands or even millions of dollars.
Oh, my goodness. That's terrifying.
Yeah.
I can see why that would be so scary for businesses.
Definitely. Businesses are a prime target for ransomware attacks because they often have a lot of sensitive data that they can't afford to lose.
So it's not just individuals who are at risk here. It's everyone.
Everyone is at risk.
Okay, so we've got these digital kidnappers running around holding our data hostage.
Right.
What other kinds of malware nasties are out there?
Well, there's spyware, which is basically like digital eavesdropping.
This is dropping.
Yeah. So spyware is designed to run the background on your computer
Okay.
without you even knowing it's there, and it's constantly collecting information about you.
Like what kind of information?
Oh, everything from your passwords and credit card numbers to your browsing history and even your keystrokes.
Keystrokes, so they
Yeah.
can see everything I'm typing.
Potentially, yes. It's like having someone looking over your shoulder all the time.
That's creepy.
Yeah.
So we've got digital kidnappers and digital spies.
Right.
What else is in this malware toolbox?
Well, there's another sneaky one called a Trojan horse.
Oh, Trojan horse, like from the story.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Just like in the story, a Trojan horse malware disguises itself as something harmless, like a game or a useful program.
Mm-hmm.
But once you download and install it,
Yeah.
it releases its malicious payload.
Ooh, malicious payload. That sounds ominous.
It is. That payload could be anything from stealing your data to giving the attackers control of your computer.
So it's like letting the enemy inside your fortress.
Exactly. And because it's disguised as something you trust, you're more likely to let your guard down.
Okay, so we've got ransomware, spyware, Trojan horses. This is all starting to sound a bit overwhelming.
Yeah. It can be scary, but the good news is there are ways to protect yourself.
Okay, good. Because I was starting to feel a little bit vulnerable here.
I understand, but there are things you can do to minimize your risk.
Okay, so what's the first line of defense?
Well, I'd say the first line of defense is awareness.
Awareness.
Yeah, just knowing that these threats exist is a big step.
Okay, so knowledge is power.
Exactly. And then beyond that, there are some practical steps you can take.
Okay, so what kind of practical steps are we talking about?
Well, one of the most important things is to have a good antivirus program installed on your computer.
Antivirus.
And keep it updated.
Updated, okay.
Yeah, because new malware is being created all the time.
Right.
So your antivirus program needs to be able to recognize and block those new threats.
So it's like having a digital bodyguard.
Exactly. It's there to protect you from those digital bad guys.
Okay, but can't those malware developers just, find ways to get around the antivirus?
They can try,
Okay.
but that's why it's so important to keep your antivirus updated.
Right.
The security companies are constantly working to identify new threats and update their software.
So it's like an arms race.
It is. It's a constant battle between the good guys and the bad guys.
And we got to make sure the good guys are winning.
Exactly.
Okay, so antivirus is important.
Yeah.
What else can we do?
Another simple but really effective thing you can do is be careful about what you download.
Download, okay.
Yeah, only download files from trusted sources.
Trusted sources.
And be wary of email attachments, especially if they're from someone you don't know.
Okay, so it's like being careful about what you bring into your home.
Exactly. You wouldn't just let any stranger walk into your house, right?
Right. Right.
Well, you should be just as careful about what you let into your computer.
Makes sense. But what about those emails that look like they're from, like, your bank or something?
Ah, yes, those are called phishing emails.
Phishing emails, okay.
And they're a very common way for attackers to spread malware.
So how do you spot a phishing email?
Well, first of all, look closely at the sender's email address. Does it really look like it's coming from your bank?
Right.
Often it'll be a slight variation of the real address.
Okay.
And then hover over any links in the email to see the actual URL.
Okay.
Just really go where it says it goes.
Okay, so it's all about being observant and skeptical.
Exactly. Don't just click on anything without thinking about it first.
Okay, good advice. So antivirus downloads, phishing emails, anything else?
Yes. One more really important thing, and this is especially important for businesses, is to keep your system updated.
System updated, you mean like the operating system?
Yeah, like Windows or macOS.
Okay.
And also all the software you have installed on your computer.
Right.
Those updates often include security patches that fix vulnerabilities that attackers could exploit.
So it's like patching up holes in your defenses.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And if you don't patch those holes, the attackers will find them.
Okay, that makes sense. So it's not just about getting the latest features, it's about staying ahead of those malware developers.
Exactly.
Okay, we've covered a lot here. Antivirus, downloads, phishing emails, system updates.
Right.
Is there anything else we could do to protect ourselves?
Well, one more thing, and this is really important if you do get infected with malware,
Okay.
is to have backups.
Backups, okay.
Yeah, make sure you're regularly backing up your important files.
But why are backups so important in a malware situation?
Because if your computer does get infected,
Yeah.
you might have to wipe it clean and reinstall everything.
Oh, no.
But if you have backups,
Yeah.
you can restore your files and get back to work without losing everything.
So it's like having a safety net.
Exactly. It's your insurance policy against data loss.
Okay, that makes sense. So where should you store those backups?
Well, ideally, you want to store them in a separate location from your computer,
Okay.
like an external hard drive,
Okay.
or a secure cloud storage service.
So that even if your computer gets compromised, your backups are safe.
Exactly.
Okay, good advice. So we've got our antivirus, we're being careful about our downloads, we're
Right.
keeping our system updated, and we're backing up our files.
Right.
Anything else?
One more thing.
Okay.
Passwords.
Oh, passwords. Yeah, I know those are important.
They are super important. Your passwords are the keys to your digital kingdom.
Okay, so how do we make sure our passwords are strong enough to keep the bad guys out?
Well, first of all, don't use the same password for multiple accounts.
Okay.
That's like using the same key for your house and your car and your office.
Right, if someone gets that key, they get access to everything.
Exactly. So use a unique password for each account.
Okay, unique passwords.
Got it. And make them strong.
Strong. Wait, what does that mean?
Use a mix of upper and lowercase letters,
Okay.
numbers and symbols,
Okay.
and aim for at least 12 characters.
12 characters. Okay, that's longer than I usually use.
I know, but the longer and more complex your password is, the harder it is for the bad guys to crack it.
Okay, so no more password 123 then.
Definitely not.
But seriously, how am I supposed to remember all these complex passwords?
Well, there are tools that can help you with that.
Okay, like what?
Password manager?
Password managers. Okay.
Yeah, a password manager is basically a digital vault that stores all your passwords securely.
Okay.
So you only need to remember one master password to unlock the vault.
So it's like having a digital bodyguard for all your passwords.
Exactly. And a lot of password managers can even generate strong passwords for you.
That's handy. So I don't even have to think about it.
Right. It takes all the guesswork out of it.
Okay, I'm definitely going to look into password managers. That sounds like a good idea.
It is. It's one of the best things you can do to protect your online accounts.
Okay, so we've talked about antivirus downloads, phishing emails, system updates, backups, passwords. I feel like we're building quite the arsenal of digital defenses here.
We are. And that's a good thing.
It is. But is all this really enough to protect us from those ever-evolving malware threats?
Well, it's a great start, but remember, cybersecurity is an ongoing process.
Building process, okay.
It's not a one-time fix.
Right.
The bad guys are constantly coming up with new ways to attack us.
So we have to constantly be adapting our defenses.
Exactly. We need to stay informed, stay vigilant, and always be one step ahead.
So it's not about achieving perfect security.
Yeah.
It's about managing risk.
Exactly. You can never eliminate risk entirely,
Right.
but you can minimize it by taking the right precautions.
Okay, well, that's reassuring.
And there are even more advanced techniques and strategies we can explore.
Oh, really?
Yes. But we'll dive into those in the next part of our deep dive.
Okay, stay tuned, folks. Things are about to get even more interesting.
They are.
Welcome back to The Deep Dive. So before we get into, all the really advanced stuff,
Right.
I wanted to circle back to something you mentioned earlier about the threat landscape always changing and those threats evolving.
Yeah.
I mean, what makes malware so hard to combat? Like, why is it such a tricky thing to deal with?
One of the biggest challenges is that, the malware itself is constantly evolving.
Yeah.
We're seeing a rise in what are called polymorphic attacks.
Polymorphic attacks.
Which are particularly tricky.
Polymorphic. Okay, I'm going to need you to break that down for me because that sounds pretty intense.
So imagine a virus. You know how, a virus can change its appearance in real time?
Like a chameleon.
Yeah, like a digital chameleon.
Okay.
So traditional antivirus software relies on recognizing specific patterns or signatures to identify malware, but polymorphic malware can constantly morph and change its code.
So it's like it's disguising itself.
It is. It's disguising itself.
To avoid detection.
Exactly.
Right.
Making it nearly invisible to those signature-based detection methods.
So it's like those malware developers are always one step ahead.
They're trying to be.
Yeah, they're trying to outsmart the good guys.
Yeah, it's a constant cat and mouse game.
It is. So how do we keep up?
Well, luckily we have some new tools in our arsenal. One of the most promising is artificial intelligence.
AI.
Yeah.
Okay, so we talked about AI in the last episode a little bit.
Right.
How does that help with this, cat and mouse game with malware?
So instead of just looking for those specific signatures, right?
Right.
AI can analyze massive amounts of data and identify patterns of behavior that might indicate malicious activity.
So it's not just about catching the bad guys, we know. It's about predicting and preventing future attacks.
It can help us stay one step ahead.
Okay, so it's like AI is giving us kind of a superpower in a way.
Yeah, it's like having a superpowered security analyst that never sleeps.
That's pretty cool. But, thinking back to this French document, Text Calais, it really emphasizes this idea of a comprehensive approach to security. So is it just about, layering on more and more technology? Or is there more to it than that?
Well, technology is a crucial part of the equation, but it's not the whole story.
Okay.
It's like building a house, you need strong walls and a sturdy foundation.
Right.
But you also need locks on the doors, an alarm system, maybe even some motion sensor lights.
Right. So it's not just about, one single thing. It's about having multiple layers of protection.
Yeah, exactly. A comprehensive approach means combining different security tools and strategies to create that more robust defense.
Right. So we're talking about antivirus.
Yes.
But also, what else did you say?
Data loss prevention tools.
Okay.
Security information and event management systems.
Okay.
Intrusion detection systems.
Wow. It's like a whole security system.
It is. It's like a whole security system for your digital life.
Which is important because our digital lives are super important these days.
Yeah.
But with all this focus on technology, I think it's easy to forget the humans are often the weakest link.
Oh, absolutely.
Right. We're the ones who click on those phishing links. We fall for those scams.
Right.
So how do we, kind of account for that human element in all this?
Well, I think one of the most important things is education.
Education, okay.
Yeah. We need to educate users about the risks, train them on best practices, and encourage them to be proactive about their own cybersecurity.
So it's about empowering people to make smart decisions.
Exactly. Give them the knowledge and the tools they need to protect themselves.
So it's almost like teaching people digital street smarts.
I like that. Digital street smarts.
Yeah.
That's a good way to put it.
Okay, so education is key, but our source material, this Text Calais document, also mentions some other best practices.
Right.
Things like network segmentation and continuous monitoring. Can you explain what those are and why they're important?
Sure. So network segmentation is basically like creating compartments within a ship.
Okay, a ship.
Yeah. So if one part of the ship gets flooded, the damage is contained and the whole ship doesn't sink.
Right.
So similarly, by dividing your network into smaller, isolated segments, you can limit the spread of malware.
So even if one part of the network gets compromised, the damage is
contained.
Contained. Okay, that's a great analogy.
Yeah.
What about continuous monitoring?
So continuous monitoring is like having a security guard constantly patrolling your network.
Okay.
Looking for suspicious activity.
Got it.
It involves using various tools and techniques to collect and analyze data from your network, your systems, your applications in real time.
So it's like having a constant stream of information.
Exactly.
Yeah, what's happening.
Yeah, and by analyzing those logs, security events, network traffic, you can detect suspicious patterns, identify vulnerabilities, and respond to incidents before they escalate.
So it's all about being proactive.
Exactly. Proactive rather than reactive.
Okay, well, this is all starting to make sense, but I got to say it's a lot to take in.
I know, it can be overwhelming.
Yeah, it feels like protecting ourselves from malware requires, a combination of technology awareness, constant vigilance.
It's not a one-size-fits-all solution.
Right.
It's about having that multi-layered approach, staying informed, adapting to the ever-changing threat landscape.
Okay.
But that doesn't mean it's impossible. By taking the right steps, being proactive about our cybersecurity, we can significantly reduce our risk and navigate the digital world safely.
Well said. And that's a great note to end on for this part of our deep dive. But before we wrap up completely, there's one more aspect of malware protection I'd love to explore, the ethical considerations.
Ooh.
Right. It's not just about protecting our data.
Right.
It's about protecting our privacy and our freedoms in this increasingly digital world.
Absolutely. You've hit on a very important point.
Okay.
The ethical implications of malware protection are becoming more and more important as we rely more on technology.
Right.
And we'll delve into those complex issues in the final part of our deep dive.
Stay tuned, folks. Things are about to get even more interesting.
They are.
Welcome back to the deep dive. We've been spending all this time, really unpacking this French document, Text Collé.
Right.
And exploring, all the different ways to protect ourselves from malware.
Yeah.
But before we wrap up, I really wanted to touch on something that I think is really important, and that's the ethical considerations.
Yeah.
Because it's not just about protecting our devices.
No, it's not. It's about protecting our privacy, our freedoms, in this increasingly digital world.
Right. And it seems like that tension between security and privacy is something that's just becoming more and more,
Absolutely.
prevalent.
Yeah.
We're constantly being monitored and tracked in the name of security. Whether it's our online activity or our location data, even our facial recognition.
It's a valid concern.
It is. And I don't really know what the answer is. Where do we draw the line?
Yeah, where's that?
How do we find that balance, between staying safe,
right,
but also protecting our freedoms?
It's a tough question.
It is a tough question.
And, there are no easy answers.
Right.
But I think it's a conversation that we need to be having.
We do.
As a society.
Yeah, because technology is only becoming more
pervasive.
Pervasive, yeah.
In our lives.
In our lives, exactly. And, it's not just about individual rights either.
Right.
Right. We have to think about, the broader impact of these tools.
Absolutely.
And these technologies that we're using for malware protection.
Some security measures could unintentionally discriminate against certain groups.
Right.
Or create, new vulnerabilities.
Yeah, it's like any powerful tool.
It is.
It can be used for good or for bad.
Right.
So I think it's really about, making sure that we're thinking about the potential consequences.
Absolutely.
Both intended and unintended.
And making sure that, these technologies are being developed and deployed responsibly.
Right. And I think transparency and accountability are so important in all of this.
I agree. We need to know how our data is being used, who has access to it,
right,
what safeguards are in place.
Right. We can't just blindly trust that, whoever is in charge is always going to be acting in our best interests. So whether it's, governments or corporations or even those developing the security software, we have to hold them accountable.
We do.
For their actions.
We can't just give them this power without any oversight.
Right. It's about checks and balances, just like
in any other system.
In any other system, right? But, all that being said, I'm kind of curious, like, how do we actually make sure that these ethical considerations are being taken seriously?
It's a good question.
Because the tech world moves so fast.
Yeah, it does.
Feels like, sometimes ethics gets left behind.
I think it starts with awareness.
Awareness, okay.
Educating ourselves about the potential risks and implications of these technologies.
Right.
And demanding more transparency from the people who are developing and deploying them.
So it's not just about being tech savvy, it's about being ethically aware as well.
Exactly. We need to be informed citizens capable of asking those critical questions.
Yeah.
Holding those in power accountable.
I love that. And I think, that's a perfect way to kind of sum up this whole conversation. Because, we've been talking a lot about the technical side of malware protection.
Yeah.
But really, it's about so much more than that, right?
It is.
It's about our privacy.
Yeah.
It's about our freedoms. It's about our future in this increasingly digital world.
And it's a future that we all have a role in shaping.
Exactly. And I think, this French document, Text Colle, it's done a really good job of highlighting that.
It has.
It's not just a technical issue. It's a human issue.
It is.
With real-world consequences.
Absolutely.
So on that note, I think it's time to wrap up this deep dive.
Okay.
We've covered a lot of ground today. We talked about all different kinds of malware, the ways to protect ourselves, and all those ethical dilemmas that we're facing.
Yeah, it's been a really interesting conversation.
It has been. And I hope that our listeners are leaving with a deeper understanding of, not just the threats, but also, how important it is to be proactive about their own security.
I hope so too.
Because at the end of the day, we're all in this together.
We are.
Right. We need to work together to create a safer, more secure, ethically responsible digital world for ourselves and for future generations.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. Until next time, stay curious, stay informed, and stay safe.